Hey guys, welcome back. In this video, we are talking about the AMC gamma squeeze, shorts begging for shares, stopping the cat system, and many more in this video. First, we're taking a look at this. Wow, with AMC implied volatility spiking to nearly 4,000% on the $3 course on Friday, that juiced call premiums as traders also loaded the calls alerted by unusual wells, which also created a brief gamma squeeze as it briefly moved over $3. So we're obviously taking a look back again at what happened on Friday. Now, we've already said in terms of the signs, which shows in terms of the weakness from shorts, but it's also to talk about where AMC is at right now. We are at a time, again, I want to focus on how shorts are weak because of the fact that they are lacking liquidity. They are failing to continuously suppressing AMC because they have all these other positions now they also have to worry. But it's also to show the sentiment that there is in AMC. Again, this is already on Friday, but I think that this is an indication of what's going to happen briefly in the future as well. And we're going to see it very likely to be very soon, is that fact that we are going to be seeing more and more volume piling in to AMC. And you can see how when we had that brief gamma squeeze on AMC, how it was brought down is because of how dangerous it is for the short sellers. We talked about how even the smallest movements in AMC will obviously have detrimental effect towards the short sellers, and that's what they are of course worried about. And so I am definitely excited to see what's to come obviously in the future. Like I said, we already have the fundamentals paired up, we have the technicals, we have the psychological sentiment all there, and we're seeing how shorts are struggling. And at any point are we going to be seeing another short seller getting bankrupt? At any point are we going to be seeing any weaknesses with the liquidity problems? That's when you know AMC is going to take off. And also, if we see another gamma squeeze in which this time it doesn't get stopped, in which it obviously continues running, then it will go back to what we've said in the past in terms of the fact that a gamma squeeze can lead to a short squeeze because of the drastic increase in price. Now, over here, you can take a look at the desperation from the short. You can see the reason why utilization rate on AMC and GME is always high at 90% and has been since 2021 is because the over-the-counter market makers like Citadel and Virtue had to borrow shares to fulfill the retail demand on AMC and GME. So companies like BlackRock and Vanguard and Fidelity made a killing lending out shares to those morons. This is why they were begging shareholders to lend out their shares. Now, many of you who have been on this journey for a very long time would have obviously known this, and you have seen signs in the past in which it's shown just how much it was to borrow shares, just how much demand there was to borrow shares of AMC. We've seen how AMC cost to borrow went up into the hundreds and thousands, and that's obviously because the shorts were in drastic need of these shares. We saw how they were asking brokers for shares. We saw how there were strategies being implemented in terms of, giving out advantages for people who are willing to lend out their AMC shares, offering them a lucrative incentive. All of that was because they were needing shares. They were begging for these shares because all of their methods were getting caught. We saw how FTX went down. So that was one of the biggest methods in terms of how they get their shares, in terms of how they tokenize AMC shares, how they're able to synthesize, hundreds of billions of shares of AMC. And so this is what we are looking at. And going back to what we've said in the start, and it's about understanding how they are able to suppress AMC, is because of times like this. And so when we see the fact that utilization rate is still at its current rate, when we see that AMC is still lending out a lot of shares in terms of how these market makers, not AMC themselves, we understand that shorts are still begging for shares. We understand that shorts are still in need of shares and that they are still trapped in this play. And another way that they don't want to get exposed is with the cat system. And it's why they're trying to push this new narrative, why they're trying to push this new goal for the cat system. You can see just in the SEC is now considering removing the consolidated audit trail cat system, which ensures fair and transparent trading practices. The rationale for potentially scrapping cat is that it costs too much and members of Congress have complained about it. I'm sorry, but this makes zero sense and retail investors need to have a say in this. So again, I'm angry, I'm disappointed, but I'm not surprised that this is happening. With the implementation of the CAT system, we have already seen how multiple firms have been exposed. We have seen how multiple transactions has been exposed. We saw that firms like Citadel were fighting in terms of against the CAT system before it was implemented. After it was implemented, we still saw firms like Citadel to try and fight against the CAT system. That's because we know how much harm it does for these firms. And now they're saying that it's becoming too costly. You can see is that it's costing them almost $250 million annually. Now, the big thing about this is essentially just how it looks like the SEC doesn't want to help out the retail, how SEC realize that having a fair market is very likely stopping how much they can make from these firms, because I already can think of an easy way for them to recoup all of the money. The implementation of the CAT system is to obviously give transparency, is that you can see here, to detect fraud, manipulation, and insider trading, right? And that's what it has done. And one of the biggest things with this is that once you are able to find out what firms is committing fraud, that is manipulating, that is insider trading, you can easily find them. You have to understand that there are plenty of trading firms who are doing things that should be fine and are making hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. We see how the SEC tends to find these firms. We see how SEC slaps a $1 million $1 million fine on a firm that's making $1 billion in profit every year. And we talked about how that amount of money is obviously insufficient or insignificant for these firms that, again, it's just a cost of business. And so if they were to continue with the CAT system, they can increase the fines in which they take towards these firms. So if a firm were to make, $500 million in profit, you could fine them $100 million, you could fine them $200 million. Again, this is an example. And what it does is that not only does it recoup the money it needs for the CAT system, but if you complain or rather if you place down a fine that's heavy enough, you will stop the shorts. It will stop these institutions from obviously still repeating these illegal methods. And so it just looks like to me, and again, I'm getting my words really messed up right now because of how angry I am with this, because it just doesn't look like they want to give a fair market for the retail investors, because the CAT system was here to really help out the retail investors, and by taking away from it, it just looks like they want the institutions to win and not retail, and it's why I'm extremely angry about this, and it's obviously why we need to be vocal about it. Again, I'm sorry that if some of the things were too fast or I'm not getting my words correct, but that just shows how angry I am about this. Another thing of why they want to obviously remove the CAT system, you can even see this. GME's order book this morning looks like a war zone. 28.15 is the line in the sand, and market makers are throwing hands. We're basically seeing how they're spoofing, how they're using all of these manipulations, and you're taking a look at what's going on for GME. Now, like we've talked about, they have already used these methods, whether it's dark pool, whether it's FTDs. These are all methods they use to obviously suppress the price of AMC and GME, and there are also other methods as well. This is just one indication of what they're doing. And again, it's why I'm highlighting the importance of the CAT system, because whilst they haven't utilized the CAT system to the full extent, like what we talked about with increasing the fine, it has definitely already shown us what these shorts are doing in order to manipulate us, in order to suppress the price, in order to try and steal this away from us. And once again, we're taking obviously a look at this. Another reason why they're worried about what's to come, and it's going back to what we talked about at the very start with the liquidity problems about the gamma squeeze, is the fact that we're looking at a massive problem. Global OTC derivatives notional at 699.48 trillion, part of data reported by the Bank for International Settlement. So you can obviously understand just how big this OTC derivative situation is. And we talked about how this can easily, blow up multiple firms. When you take a look at, again, Bank of America, at Goldman Sachs, at JP Morgan, we're looking at how big of a derivative positions that they have. And we talked about how they are the prime lenders for some short sellers. And so obviously with their positions blowing up, especially when we take a look at what's happening right now, they are very prone to the blow up of, all of these positions. They could easily lose out on hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars. You can see these banks go bankrupt with one tiny mistake, and that's why they're extremely worried about this. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching the video. I'll catch you guys next time.